We begin our activity by opening up an internet browser and going to www.google.com. We then type in SOCR Ozone activity and hit search. We click on the second link, SOCR MotionCharts -SOCR. Under the Activities section, click on MotionChart California Ozone Data. You can also access this page by the link up at the top, as seen here. Throughout this example, I will refer to this webpage as the California Ozone homepage. The following activity demonstrates the usage and functionality of SOCR MotionCharts as a tool for analyzing longitudinal and multivariate data. Some of the goals of this example are to demonstrate how to import data into SOCR MotionCharts and how to explore the graphical visualization of real-life multidimensional data. Before we begin with our example, I'm going to discuss a few advantages of using SOCR MotionCharts. The first is that it provides a new way for exploratory analysis of multivariate data. Second, we can use SOCR MotionCharts to visualize high-dimensional longitudinal data. Third, it allows mapping of ordinal, nominal, quantitative variables onto time, axes, size, colors, glyphs, and appearance characteristics. Finally, SOCR MotionCharts can be used as an instructional tool for integrating high-dimensional data in the classroom. Now that we have our activity homepage open, we need to open up two more browser tabs. So go ahead and scroll down to the section called Initial Settings. So if we scroll down here under Initial Settings, we want to open up our applet and our ozone dataset in different tabs. So to do this, on a Mac, you want to hold down the Control button. So hit Control and click on the link and say Open Link in New Tab. So that opened our ozone data, and now we also want to open the applet in a new tab. So go ahead and hit Control and Open Link in New Tab. And that is opening our motion chart. Now on the motion chart applet, you may get a pop-up. If you get a pop-up, please just click the Allow option. So that was for Macs. Now for PCs, you can go ahead and just use the right-click button on either of these links and again say Open in a new tab. Now you should have a total of 3 tabs open: your homepage, your data, and your applet. So back to our homepage. We will now move on to our example using the California Ozone dataset. So we will scroll to the section called Background to get a brief background of our data. So scroll up to where it says Background. And we can see that the dataset represents California ozone measurements from 20 locations over a span of 27 years between 1980 and 2006. And has 540 rows and 22 variables. The figure on the right here shows an interactive map of the locations of the data and measurements. So if you click on this, you can play around with this interactive map. So going back to our homepage by using the back button. One of the goals of this activity is to identify any relationships or associations between the variables. The variables included in the dataset can be seen on the California Ozone Dataset tab. So if we click back to our Ozone Dataset tab, we can see all of our given variables in the dataset, which are under Data Description. Now we may begin our example. So going back to our home page, we scroll down to the section that says Hands-on Activity. And we're going to use this as a guide for our actual example. So first, we click on the California Ozone Dataset tab. And the first thing that we need to do to start our example is copy in all of this data here. So we begin by highlighting the very first cell here, Index, and hit Shift. Hold Shift the entire time and scroll all the way down to the bottom of your data set. Scrolling all the way down. And you want to scroll all the way over to the very last number here, 34. And go ahead and click on it, and if you hold Shift the entire time, that will highlight everything. Now we want to copy our data. To copy your data for a Mac, you hit Command-C. For a PC, you hit Control-C. So once you have copied your data, we need to go to our SOCR MotionCharts applet. So here's our applet. Once you're on the applet, we can click on the option here, Data, next to Chart. So click on Data, and we want to click on the very first cell here, 0.0. Once you click on it, it should highlight the entire cell. Once that cell is highlighted, for Macs, we want to paste the data, so you're going to hit Command-V, and for PCs, you're going to hit Control-V. So pasting our data. That included all of the data from our Data tab. Next, we need to map the column variables to different properties. We will use the mapping defined on the California Ozone Activity homepage under the section Hands-on Activity. So we'll use this mapping here. So for key, we will use year. For x-axis, we use longitude, and so on. So going back to our applet page, over here on the right, we're going to define our mappings. So, as stated on the home page, for key, we're going to use year. For x-axis, we're going to use longitude. For y-axis, we're going to use latitude. For size, we're going to use month 1, which represents January. For color, we're going to use month 7, which represents July. And for category, we're going to use location. Okay, so now once you have all of your mappings defined, you may get a pop-up that says something. If you do, just go ahead and click OK. Finally, we need to click back up here on chart where we clicked on data earlier. And I'm going to scroll down so you can see the entire motion chart and your year. So we can now run the applet by either pushing the play button or moving the scroll bar at the bottom. I'm going to push the play button. So let's watch the applet go now. Okay, now that the applet has run, we can see from the motion chart the geographic distribution of California ozone pollution as it changes with time. Note there are a few other features that we can do while using the SOCR MotionCharts. Before we play the applet, so if we go back here to the beginning as I just did, you can click on a bubble and track it with time. So if we were to click on these bubbles here and hit play, we can watch those particular bubbles or locations as time goes on. And then to simply unhighlight them, just click on them. Or you can simply just scroll over a bubble and it'll give you a particular location's number. And finally, you can also double click on a bubble to get the corresponding information for that bubble. So if we go back to our activity homepage, we can see that there are other possible mappings which allow for exploring different types of intrinsic data characteristics. So we can see this section on temporal changes in California ozone and geographic distribution of California ozone pollution. Those are two more examples that you could do. We can also see at the bottom down here that these data can be integrated using SOCR's other tools such as spider charts, box and whisker plots, regression analysis, and many more. But in essence, the purpose of SOCR MotionCharts is to provide users with a way to visualize the relationships between multiple variables and manipulate them interactively. And finally, at the bottom, this activity can be translated into 24 different languages.